I was gonna say, I don't think. I think one thing that Sri Lanka can take from this is South Africa, a team that had its T20 superstars kind of jettison the side, built a good test team from not very much talked about players, right? David Beddingham's, the Kyle Varinas, guys who are not getting contracts from all over the world. And what a bowling attack they had. KG Rabada, he is so massively underrated. 9 wickets in the final. Shout out to Temba for leading that squad. I think they were flashing the stat that he's won 9 test matches with 1 draw. And um, I'll add that second test against South Africa was well within our grips. We had a chance to win that test, but we kind of fumbled. The South Africa scored 358 in the first innings, and we replied with 328. But at one point, we were 261 for three in that first innings. That game was there for the taking. So I think the Sri Lankan team can look at their squad and say, this is a squad that has a lot of talent, that can do a lot of things. It's got a lot of players who can perform all over the world. We've seen what Asita Fernando and Lahiru Kumara did in England, right? And then again in South Africa. We saw what Prabhath Jayasuriya can do at Gaul, right? And he's shown himself to be fairly handy in other conditions as well. This is a squad that should be able to compete at the highest level. They've got young talent in Pathum Nissanka and Kamindu Mendes who sky's the limit on them, right? These are players who can go anywhere. So I think Sri Lanka should look at that triumph of South Africa and think this is doable for us. We can win in these conditions. We just got to continue to grind on, play hard, and not lose matches that we should absolutely win. One thing that I wanted that this brought me to is Angela Matthews in his farewell press conference kind of reflected on the state of Test cricket after the World Test Championship. Sri Lanka plays only 12 Test matches, I think, over the next 2 years, which is the least of any side tied with Bangladesh. And I think India, Australia, and England play anywhere between 19 and 21 Test matches. And that disparity is just, at this day and age, um, not cool. Angelo said it's very sad to see. Sri Lanka is a team that has won World Cups. Sri Lanka is a team that has won in England as an Asian side, which hasn't been done in a decade, right? They've won in South. They're the only Asian side that's won in South Africa ever. Period. Right? They've whitewashed the Aussies at home in the last decade, which again I think is quite rare for any Asian side to do. And I think we should be getting more games. I think it's kind of sad to look at someone like Angela Matthews and think maybe we're never going to have another Test cricketer play 100 tests.
Yeah, I can't see a situation where we have any other players. I mean, how close is Chandy? He might make it, but I think once the senior players, and at this point, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking actually it's just Chandy and DDS who are kind of
Mm.
left, as in players who've played a considerable number of Test matches. I think
And
that's it.
Crystal Mendes, I would say,
And,
is the other one.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think Sri Lanka's never having a player get to 100 tests ever again.
Mm.
So I think my kind of thoughts of this are this, right? Sri Lanka is an island, and the Sri Lankan people and the diaspora around the world are people that are deeply in love with cricket as a sport. They're deeply in love with the idea of Test cricket. It's a game that if every other country in the world stopped playing cricket, or for whatever reason people decided that Sri Lanka weren't going to be involved in any of the three formats ever again, cricket
Yeah.
would continue to thrive in the island. We see that with rugby, right? Rugby, but I know the lightweight All Blacks just turned up a few weeks ago, and the Sri Lankan rugby team actually, is doing quite well at the moment. But even where there's long periods where they don't get games fixtures against bigger teams, or they only have to play locals, other kind of Asian teams, rugby still thrives, right? Rugby's
Mm.
thrive there in an environment where every other force in world rugby hasn't done anything to help them, hasn't interacted. Cricket will still thrive in Sri Lanka if no one ever played us ever again, right? But if the rest of the world wants cricket to thrive in Sri Lanka, sorry, Sri Lankan cricketers to thrive outside of Sri Lanka, and players from Sri Lanka to reach the potential, like we've seen in the past with Kumar and Mahela and Aravinda, and another, a whole there's a whole goat farm of Sri Lankan cricketers at this point, right? Then we need the rest of the world really at this point to step up, okay? Because the economics of it aren't going to change rapidly overnight. Or I also think we're at a stage now where when I go online and I see commentators from, pundits from England and Australia screaming at India, the BCCI and Jay Shah about not doing their fair share. I'm like, actually, for me, the original sins were committed by the England and Australian boards, and absolutely continue to be committed by the England and Australian boards. Right? When was the last time Sri Lanka played a Boxing Day Test? When was the last time? Whenever has Sri Lanka been invited for a 5-match series to either of these two countries? There is absolutely no reason whatsoever why, because I was trying to think what I could do if I was the ECB, Sri Lanka couldn't play the West Indies in the middle of August in Essex or in Gloucester or in a number of other this kind of smaller county grounds. They could easily put on Afghanistan versus Zimbabwe as a test match in Cardiff. That's an international stadium that gets chronically underused for international cricket. If they wanted to do that, they could. Australia, if they wanted to do that, Australia know if they were able to somehow get into a position where the SCG was hosting Sri Lanka versus Pakistan or Sri Lanka versus Afghanistan or Afghanistan versus Pakistan as a test match in Sydney, that would be a full that'd be a viable game to carry on, right? You get people watching it and people coming to wanting to buy the rights for it. So I think you look at India, okay? So you could go on and say, right, they take too big a purse, and yeah, that's right. That's there's some truth in it. But from a Sri Lanka perspective, India make sure that they play us almost every year.